Chris Jenkins here, and I was not in the meeting, but there was a meeting yesterday with David Tepper, and I saw on Twitter all this buzz going, and at first I kind of didn't pay attention, then so much kept going. It was strange. So you know what I do? I like to say I work for the people, so what I did was get as close to the horse's mouth as I could. And I have joining me today, Marcel. I'm gonna let you say your last name for the people.
I don't blame you, Marcel Louis-Jacques.
Just rolls off the tongue, right?
Hey man, I can't complain. You know, there was a time back in elementary school and they make you write out your entire name.
Right.
Where I complained to my dad. I was like, man, this is too long. Why is our name so long? And he's like, just trust me. Like people are gonna love it. Like you're gonna learn to appreciate it. And like just about everything, Pops was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's dead on.
You appreciate it.
I love it, man. Okay. It's unique.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the show. You've been with Charlotte Observer for how long now?
I started in October, so I guess that's, 3 months?
3 months. You're still a rookie.
It's crazy. I was just saying earlier today that it feels like 3 years given, all that's been packed into such a short amount of time. But no, it's still 3 months. It's still my first off season.
Hey, well, you know what? I always tell people, like, I'm candid on my shows. I'm jealous that you got the little official Twitter thing on your handle. But here's what I like about it. When I go to your site or your Twitter, there's this picture that you have on your profile. Guess who's in the background?
Yeah. That's oh man, threw you a lob there, huh?
Yeah. So that's my little. I'm halfway official on Twitter now because I'm in the background of your page. But let's get right into it, man. Again, so David Tepper, you guys had a meeting with him yesterday. Let's first, before we get into what was said, set up the scene. What kind of environment or what the room looked like for this meeting?
It looked like a boardroom. I think big table, kind of spread around. David Tepper was at the head of it. It was small, and that was nice. Observer had a pretty decent representation there. ESPN, Athletic, Riot Report, and people like that. It was intimate, and that's about what we expected it to be.
How many people would you say was in there?
Probably 15, give or take.
Pretty small.
Yeah, it was compared to how many could show up.
Right.
It was pretty small, and that's probably what David Tepper wanted. Like he's not really a big, attention, eyes on me kind of guy. So
nothing like that first meeting where he had the screens up and it was
it
hundreds
wasn't
of people in there.
No, I just wanted it to be low key, a place for us to everybody to talk and kind of I guess kick back some questions about what happened this season and get his opinion on it. And he was pretty forthcoming. He was pretty open. David Tepper, he's a very personable guy. So really sarcastic a little bit too.
Yeah.
But it's nice. You don't get the feeling like you're talking to a multi-billionaire.
I want to know, did he have the shirt unbuttoned? I know at first he tells you how that shirt button about down to here. It
didn't look like casual Fridays in Honolulu, man. But it wasn't intimidating. It doesn't come in there with the Armani suits that I'm sure he could afford.
Right.
He's if you ever see him out, if he's ever at practice, he's always it's so casual. Like if you don't know who he is, you almost wouldn't guess who he is.
The billionaire's walking around.
Right. I mean, like the first time I ever met him, and it's the banner of my Twitter profile.
Okay.
He was in like just this long sleeve Panther shirt, some dad jeans and a hat. It was just like
don't say dad jeans. My son says that about me. You got on your dad clothes.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like casual jeans. Okay. Casual jeans. But once again, if I didn't know this is what David Tepper looks like,
right,
then like he could just walk by and you just wouldn't guess.
Right.
And so I guess it's cool to have that kind of unassuming person at the top.
And all this bravado.
Exactly.
All right. So again, I'll tell you about my day. Didn't know that the conference was happening and was doing an interview. But anyway, I saw on Twitter people commenting about David Tepper's comments regarding Cam Newton. And what caught me off guard the most was that, I haven't been doing this for decades, but I've been doing it for a little while, is that I can't recall a time recently that I've seen so many other media outlets or colleagues of the media not like a headline that they had seen. So, I saw one, I was like, all right, well, somebody didn't like two, but literally it seemed like everyone that I follow that's in media felt like some of the things that came out of that meeting were misconstrued, rearranged, however you want to put it. So, Marcel, you asked him the question. So you mind saying the question and telling me about these comments that kind of seem to be whatever they are.
It was a wildfire, man.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So the question stemmed from Tepper. He was talking about Cam's health and the likelihood of, not necessarily the likelihood, but the team's thoughts on his recovery, which he doesn't know. It's just like what Ron Rivera had been telling us throughout the latter part of the season. They're just not sure what the status of his shoulder is, what the future of his shoulder is, but they're hopeful that he will be ready by the season opener.
Okay.
And so he said, it could turn out great. Just look at what happened with Luck this season. And for anybody watching who doesn't know, Andrew Luck suffered a shoulder injury that some consider to be a little worse than Cam's, but it's comparable. He sat out the entire 2017 season, and he came back this year, led the Colts to the NFC divisional round, and looked like vintage Andrew Luck. And so as soon as he said that, kind of ears perked up a bit. It's like, hold on, but Luck, he was hurt, but he sat an entire year. And so I asked him if Luck's success after sitting out has made shutting Cam down for a season a more attractive option if he were not 100% entering the season. To which David replied, if you were to tell me that he can sit out and be fully recovered, then yeah, why wouldn't you do that? We would have to be prepared for it. We would have to X, Y, Z. He's speaking in hypotheticals. It wasn't him saying, this is what we're preparing for, like he isn't going to play or suggesting that he isn't going to play. It was a hypothetical answer to a hypothetical question.
Right.
And especially, I personally consider it a viable option for Cam because David Tepper even said earlier in the meeting that it should have been a red flag when Cam was turning in so many limited practices throughout the latter half of the season.
Right.
And so it made me think, okay, well, if they're clearly not comfortable with him being limited, then I don't know how comfortable they would be letting their $100 million man run out there with a less than 100% arm.
Right.
It's just, they tried it this year. It doesn't seem like the best possible option, but I wanted to get his opinion on it. Right. And so it let me know that he is willing to consider whatever is best for the team's future. And that's as far as it got. And I forget exactly who it was, but somebody said, there's 15 of us in the room. If David Tepper actually suggested, that Cam sitting out was on the table, it was like realistically on the table. Right. A lot of people would have tweeted that out immediately. The information would have been out immediately. And I want to throttle back because I don't want to drag anybody, but
absolutely.
I think that where so much of that response came from is we're in a time where we in the media, we're not really, in the grand scheme of things, we're just known as media. Right. They don't see, the Charlotte Vibe said, Charlotte Observer said, da-da-da-da said. It's just the media says. And so when the media does something outlandish, then the media, I think all of us, are kind of lumped into that. And so one of the core values of our job is to report the truth and to make sure people have all the information possible at their disposal to come to their own conclusion. Like, we're not in the business of making conclusions for people. So I think that's where you saw so much of that kickback from. It's like, hey guys, before this, blows up, like this is our beat. This is kind of our responsibility. Here's what actually happened, and trying to kind of put out the flames. And I think.
Do you recall what the headline was on that outlet? That
something along the line. I don't remember.
I don't think I saw the original version in time before it got, because it's been changed, right?
I would assume so. Okay. I don't check back. I didn't check back. But it was something along the lines of like Panthers owner suggests Cam Newton could sit out 2019 season. Yeah. Or something along those lines. And I thought it was interesting. I mean, you saw Panthers writers rebuke it, and
everybody.
It was, and you had a good point earlier. You don't often see that kind of uniformity, but yeah, like I said, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but from my perspective, that's our job in a fundamental part of journalism is to report the truth and be accurate. And so we wanted to make sure that before people came to a conclusion that they had the correct context and the correct information.
Now, maybe you don't know the answer, but here's literally what I racked my head on. It's like, why did everybody else respond so much, right? And I tried to do a little digging last night, and my conclusion that I came to, that I'll ask you because you were one of the people in there, was it because it was such a small, exclusive group, and it was the first time meeting with David Tepper, that people kind of felt like, hey, when we get this opportunity to kind of have this time with someone of this nature, let's all have some more consciousness about what we're doing. Because one part of it, and I'll just be transparent, just think, well, clickbait is what everybody does. The headline is to get you to read the article, and having Cam sit out for a year is an option. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that's what it is. Thoughts on that comment from me?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to clickbait. It's such like a cringy term, but once again, you have a point. The whole goal of a headline is to interest somebody in reading the story. You would like to not use revert to yellow journalism tactics and big click-worthy headlines, but it has to be interesting. But that was the focal point of the story I wrote, is that the Panthers are preparing for the worst. They're hoping for the best and preparing for the worst.
Okay.
So it's not that they expect Cam not to play, but they want to be prepared just in case, so they don't, get caught with their pants down, basically, if it does come out that he's not prepared.
Gotcha.
But
well, that's good. We won't beat the horse, but I just wanted to have you on to talk about that. There was more talked about in that meeting than Cam. What were your 3 takeaways, or your top 3 that you would say from David Tepper yesterday?
I think the biggest takeaway is how dedicated and how passionate David Tepper is about getting new facilities for the franchise. I think in the interview he did with the team site with Bill Voth,
right,
he called the team like his child, basically. He had that emotional
feeling. That was
feeling.
funny to see him talking about a child, right?
Yeah, but that just shows you right there. He really cares. This isn't a money-making venture for him. It's not just something to do in his spare time. I mean, billionaires, but no, it's something he truly cares about. And so for something to occur, like for an NFL team to practice in the ballroom of a convention center, he brought that up repeatedly, and he's like, it comes off as I don't want to say he was joking, but he was smiling, and it came off lighthearted, but it was like a smile through the pain kind of thing. Like deep down, he was upset by it,
right,
and he wants that. But it wasn't just the thing that it wasn't just the facilities that are seen in the public eye, like the new practice center and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He even said they need to improve within the stadium, like the team cafeteria.
Right.
Like that just shows he's detail oriented.
Right.
And
yeah,
you don't make $1 billion without paying attention to the little things. And so I thought that was really worth paying attention to. I thought that he was incredibly candid about why he brought Ron Rivera back and why the team went through that losing streak toward the end of the season. He said himself that he thought the defense got older a little faster than everybody expected. And so he wasn't willing to put Ron Rivera at fault for it. I think he's willing to give him another chance because, as David Tepper put it, Rivera is a great defensive coach. Mm-hmm. And you saw that potential when he started taking over play calling toward the end of the season.
How short do you think that leash will be next year for Ron?
I think he's on one of the hotter seats in the league, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think every indication I got from David Tepper during that meeting was that he's going to give Rivera and going to give Marty Herney room to solve the issue. And so I don't think he is you got to understand where he's coming from. He was a minority owner with the Pittsburgh Steelers, mm-hmm. which has had, 3 head coaches in like the past 50 years? Like that's their model of consistency. So I think that's what he knows. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him continue that or carry that on here.
Right.
And I also was kind of surprised that how he described the offensive line. Everybody knows that the offensive line was a problem issue last year. I mean, they got 2 quarterbacks knocked out of the game in the last 2 weeks, despite their success in the run game. I know if Ryan Khalil is watching, Ryan, you guys are excellent in the run game. I mean, you don't do that without good run play or without good offensive line play. You deserve credit there. But David Tepper came out and said that the offensive line looked like a disaster.
Okay.
And so I think that kind of, as far as the draft goes, I think that might have tipped the Panthers' hat a little bit as to where they're leaning toward the top of the draft, or maybe what they're really focusing on as far as additions come April.
Okay. So one was facilities, was it, as far as your highlights?
Oh yeah, facilities.
Go ahead.
Facilities, defense and support for Ron Rivera,
Right.
and offensive line in the draft.
All right. There was new stadium. Did you talk about a new stadium?
Didn't really dive too far into the new stadium. I think you can expect further improvements to Bank of America Stadium. It's something that kind of crossed my mind after we left, but that ESPN report I think it was ESPN report about the safety and food code violations.
Yes,
the major stadiums.
That was ESPN.
Bank of America Stadium was it dead last?
Both. I think both of our teams were dead last. I think so.
They're in the.
You guys
they're
are dangerously
close.
We're not certain, but
they're dangerously close to the bottom of the list. And so I kind of wish I'd thought of that during the meeting. But sometimes the way these things go, or the way conversations go, certain things slip your mind. It's part of the game.
Yeah. So Devin Funchess was one of those guys that had a up and down season, right?
Yeah.
And was inactive that last game. He had tweeted yesterday thanking fans for support in what was a tough season, right? At first when I read it, I was like, is he saying goodbye? No, he's not saying goodbye. He's saying it was a tough season, wrote a blog. What are your thoughts on his return for next year?
I think that Devin had a strong start to the season, and there was a 3-week span where he just looked like the epitome of what his role was supposed to be, which is that the jump ball downfield 50-50 receiver, and especially against Washington when he goes over Quentin Dunbar, and the double move he put on, name slipping my mind, but Philadelphia's corner for the touchdown that helped spark that rally to come back. It looked like he was accomplishing that, and then it kind of came crashing down against Detroit. I think it was 4 or 5 missed balls or missed catches, drop catches.
Right.
And really, though, the takeaway from that was not blocking Darius Slay on DJ Moore's 80-yard run, and I think was the third quarter.
Okay.
Because Slay ends up going from covering Funchess to sprinting downfield and making the tackle.
Uh-huh.
And it was the touchdown-saving tackle on a possession Carolina ultimately didn't score in a game they lost by 1.
Right.
So, it's those little things. It's like a butterfly effect, and these things kind of spiral. And he was hurt that game. I believe he missed the next one.
Yep.
And they started to see – it gave Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore the opportunity to show what they can do on the field at the same time. And you started to see Devin's snap count get lower and lower and lower. And ultimately, this isn't a knock against Devin as a player, but I don't necessarily see a reason to bring him back next year, given the money he might command. If he wants number 1 receiver money, if he even wants $9 million a year, I still think that's a little much to pay for a guy that's not on the field as much as your 2, first and second year receivers.
Right.
Especially what the offense wants to do. They want their receivers to basically turn into running backs when they get the ball. My coworker, my beat partner, Jordan Rodriguez, wrote about it. It's the new deep ball. Get these guys the ball and let them run after the catch.
Yeah.
And that's not what Devin Funchess' strength is. That's not what his game is.
Yeah.
So he'll find a home somewhere. I'm not confident that the Panthers are going to bring him back just because of that.
And on that, I've had thoughts about Norv Turner likes multi-purpose guys on the offensive side all over, right? So that's why Devin doesn't so much fit, because he's just this guy. He can't get the ball. But I say that to say I don't think Cameron Artis-Payne is going to return. That's a little bit of a personal guy to me. I love him, but I think he did, C.J. Anderson didn't make it. Cameron Artis-Payne didn't get many reps because he's just this. He can do a little bit, but he can't be as dynamic of a runner and catcher, and that's, I believe, what Norv really likes for his skill positions on the offensive side.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. Obviously, the knee-jerk reaction to C.J. Anderson is the Panthers made this glaring mistake, given how successful he's been these past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But CJ Anderson, he's running like a guy who had fewer than 50 carries all season. Like he's running like he's got fresh legs. He's talented.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Once again, CJ, if you're watching, you're a good running back.
You said you're going to stop trolling people this year, so you're safe.
I'm trying to. I don't want to fall into that.
Right.
He is a good running back. He's a 1,000-yard runner. He's a world champion, and he has. If anybody paying attention on Twitter, he told people all season that this is what he can do.
Right.
So I think they let him go because Christian McCaffrey was just such an integral part of the offense. And even when he's not getting the ball, his presence on the field was so necessary that it's like, okay, we've got this guy, we've got CJ Anderson here, and it's almost like a favor to CJ. It's like we're not using you right now. Like you've still got more in you than this. And so, life works itself out. I'm a very big proponent of life working itself
Positive
out.
vibes, I like it.
Look, he fell into a situation that this is a team that could win the Super Bowl. This is a team that can thrive with 2 running backs.
Yeah.
Like, why? He's not mad. I don't think he's too mad about it. Carolina fans shouldn't be mad about it either because I really hate to break it to you, but C.J. Anderson on the Panthers is not necessarily changing the record right now. Like, it was what it was. The offense wasn't the problem. So, you got to pick your battles here. So, but I think that if guys like I just wrote about it today. If guys like Damian Harris from Alabama, if he is available in the 3rd round, he might not be, but if he's available in the 3rd round, you have to have a serious discussion about, okay, this isn't our priority, this isn't our top need, but at what point do we say, is a player so good that you have to take the best player available?
Right.
And I think a guy like Damian Harris who could run between the tackles and who has good hands and runs decent routes out of the backfield, who can spell Christian McCaffrey, that means the offense gets less predictable if McCaffrey leaves the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, you put Cameron Artis-Payne in there, okay, he's either getting the ball and bursting up the middle, or he's pass blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't expect Cameron Artis-Payne to go out for routes. So I think a guy like Damian Harris would help keep that same offensive philosophy with or without McCaffrey in the game. But or a guy like T.J. Yeldon or Mark Ingram in free agency, depending on the cost.
Right.
Like there are ways that you can bolster the backfield right now. Because Christian, you ask Christian, he's ready to get the ball 100% of the time. He doesn't care. He don't care if he leaves the field or not. I'm sure he'll go out there and play cornerback if they ask him to. But that snap rate isn't a concern. But you've got to have some awareness about how often you use a guy like that. 107 catches plus, he had 1,000 yards on the ground. Like that's a really heavy workload. You don't want to overdo it. Like you want to be able to spell him if you can.
Right.
So I wouldn't be shocked if the right player is available at the right time, they pick a running back or they sign one in free agency.
All right. Well, we're gonna finish this. Give me Marcel. Give me Marcel's number 1 draft need for this team.
Number 1 draft need. Obviously, it depends on who is available. Knee jerk says,
what do you want to see the most?
You'd want to see. It's still hard to say, but like if a guy like Cody Ford, for example, out of Oklahoma, is available at 16, then offensive line is your biggest need.
Okay.
This is a guy who can play left tackle. He can play tackle. He can play inside. He gives you that kind of versatility right now, and he is a bear in shoulder pads. This guy finishes his blocks like you. It's what you would expect to see from just a blue-collar offensive lineman.
Right.
But at the same time, if a guy like Brian Burns, that DN from Florida State, somebody who can give you some speed off the edge is available, then you've got to go there. So it just depends on who's available. It's obviously it's January still, so we haven't seen.
You don't know what's going to be available.
You just don't know. Yeah. Like you just don't know yet. The landscape changes so much before the draft.
Right.
But me personally, I think you go Cody Ford. If he's there in the first round, I think no matter who's there, I think you go Cody Ford in the first round.
Yeah.
And you try to get a guy like Clemson's Austin Bryant in the second round, who's not talked about as much as the other Clemson guys.
Right.
But don't get it twisted. This guy can play.
All right.
So if he's there in the second round, you snatch him up, and I think you just hit a home run.
Okay. Word on the street is you're not afraid to talk to people online and the comments and Twitter. Is that right?
Oh, man.
So, as always, I love to hear interaction from you guys. Leave your comments below for myself or Marcel. I'll put them in the headlock. Make sure he checks your comments. But, Marcel, let's look into that camera and let people know how they can find you, who you work with once again.
All right, I'm Marcel Louis-Jacques, the Carolina Panthers beat
Can you say that
reporter.
name again, Marcel, again?
It's say it one more time for the people in the back, right? It's
Right.
Marcel Louis-Jacques, Panthers beat reporter from the Charlotte Observer. You can find me on Twitter at Marcel_LJ. You can email me. It's a very long email address. Just go to my Twitter page and there's a link right there.
All right, so as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know everything, so I work for you guys when you ask me questions. I just bring on intelligent guys like this to give you those details. So thank you for watching. As always, subscribe, hit the bell notifications because you don't want to miss stuff like this. Thanks for watching.